Enoch 22 verse 1 talks and explains this idea about the abysses. It says, and thence I went to another place, and he showed me in the west another great and high mountain of hard rock, and there were 4 hollow places in it, deep and very smooth. 3 of them were dark and 1 bright, and there was a fountain of water in its midst. And I said, how smooth are the hollow places, and deep and dark to view.
It's like a take Enoch to work day. Raphael's taking him to his job, right?
Yeah, because Raphael's the head angel over this place of creation.
Yeah. And so Enoch in a vision is being shown these things. In verse 3, it says, then Raphael answered one of the holy angels who was with me and said unto me, these hollow places have been created for this very purpose, that the spirits of the souls of the dead should assemble therein. Yeah, that all the souls of the children of men should assemble here.
Verse 4 says, and these places have been made to receive them till the day of their judgment, until their appointed period, till the great judgment comes upon them. And I saw the spirit of a dead man making suit, and his voice went forth to heaven and made suit.
Till when? Until their
appointed judgment.
To their judgment and appointed period. And that's where they received the hollow places, received the souls of men until that point. Interesting.
Right. Yeah.
Enoch 22 verse 6 says, and I asked Raphael, the angel who was with me, and said unto him, the spirit which makes suit, whose is it? Whose voice goes forth and makes suit to heaven? And he answered me, saying, this is the spirit which went forth from Abel, whom his brother Cain slew, and he makes its suit against him. So we see this also in Genesis 3?
No, Genesis 4, right?
4. Thank you.
Yahweh speaks to, through the angel, speaks to Cain, say his blood cries out to me from the ground. When that's what we understand, that's an idiomatic phrase. Blood doesn't speak. It may have vibration, but that, the Father's trying to tell him he knew what Cain did. So then Enoch, I asked regarding it and regarding all the hollow places, why is one separated from the other? And he answered me and said, these 3 have been made that the spirits of the dead might be separated, and this division has been made for the spirits of the righteous.
So 3 receptacles. And at that time, now this is Richard Lawrence jumping back a verse, starting at verse 9. It says, at that time, therefore, I inquired respecting him, respecting the general judgment, saying, why is one separated from another? He answered, 3 separations have been made between the spirits of the dead, and thus have the spirits of the righteous been separated. And he adds here, Richard Lawrence in his translation adds in verse 10 that namely, they are separated by a chasm, by water and by light above it. Thought that was an interesting addition here, considering.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, especially considering what's given in Luke 16.
And then in verse 12, it goes on to say, this division's been made for the spirits of those who make their suit, who make disclosures concerning their destruction, and when they were slain in the days of the sinners. And this has been made for the spirits of men who shall not be righteous, but sinners, who are godless. Now, WesBlaze, I think it seems like from the context of it in verse 13, he's speaking about a different cavern or a different compartment now, as opposed to the ones that had the slain righteous.
Correct. Yeah, he made a distinction of there being a separation, so 2 distinct here, even though he mentioned 3, we're looking at 2 of them so far. One of them for the righteous, one of them for the wicked, who will not be deemed righteous.
Right, because there's 4 total, but right now he just kind of focuses in on explaining 3 of them at this moment.
Yeah.
So he goes on to say in verse 13, this has been made for the spirits of men who shall not be righteous, but sinners, who are godless, and of the lawless they shall be companions. WesBlaze, I thought the law didn't come about till Mount Sinai. What's happening here?
Oh, this is... Go ahead.
1,200 years from Mount Sinai, Enoch's following the law, being taught the law, and the angels are expressing to him that the lawless are going down to Sheol in this particular cavern. It says, they shall be companions of the sinners and godless, but their spirits shall not be punished in the day of judgment, nor shall they be raised from here.
Why is that, Sean?
So
the day of judgment.
The day of judgment, right? That's a common phrase referred to as what we call the day of the Lord, and that's when the first resurrection of the saints happens. But those who are unrighteous, as being described here in this verse, do not get resurrected at that point. They have to wait till the end of the millennial reign for the great white throne judgment to be resurrected then.
So all God's people who love him, when Jesus comes back at the 7th trumpet, immediately after the tribulation, as he says, when he returns for the last and final time, he raises his people who love him and want to follow his ways. He raises them from these receptacles in the hollow places under the earth, this is saying. But the ones that aren't his people, that refuse him, refuse his ways, they're left until after the millennial reign. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. Yeah,
I agree.
So they're not getting out for whenever you think the return of the Messiah is happening, they're not getting out until 1,000 years after his return. And that is their appointed judgment. Like you read back in verses 2 and 3, everyone's got their appointed time period to be judged. So these unrighteous people, their appointed time period is at the great white throne judgment at the end of the millennial reign.
Luke 16:25-26. But Abraham said, "Child, remember that during your life you received your good things, and likewise Lazarus had bad things. But now he is being comforted here, and you are in agony." He's speaking to the rich man. And besides all this, between us and you, there is a great chasm fixed, so that those who wish to come over from here to you will not be able to, and that none may cross over from there to us. So I just picked this verse here to cover from Luke 16. We're going to, in lieu of reading the whole chapter to you, we're going to show you a cool visual that I found. However, I pointed this out and highlighted the words that I did because that's exactly how Sheol, Hades in the Greek, Sheol in the Hebrew, is described in Enoch 22, as we just read, specifically considering what Richard Lawrence added about there being a chasm separating them.
Yep.
Real physical tangibility here, right? We're talking about earthy concepts of an underworld with real, actual practicality, right?
The purpose of him creating this on day one with these specific basement compartments in his big house. So yeah, do you want me to play that clip real quick?
That's cool. Yeah, please do. Enjoy.
Touch me. Do you want me to be unclean as well? I shall even allow you to beg at my gate.
Forgive me, sir. Forgive me. I have not eaten in days. I wondered if I might have some of the scraps fall from your table.
Scraps will fall from my table. But then with the Darcy, I have business to attend to. And Barnabas is infected.
Welcome. Father Abraham?
Yes.
Yes, I am Abraham.
Welcome.
Yes, Lazarus. Father Abraham! Father Abraham! Have mercy on me! I saw you with Lazarus. Seriously. If he might get a bite of his finger in the water and touch my tongue, I will agony on these flames!
Son, you remember. In your life, you received your good things. And Lazarus here received his bad things. Now he is being comforted, and you are in agony. Besides all of this, there is between us a great chasm fixed. If someone wishes to come from here to you, they cannot, and no one can cross from you to us.
Father Abraham, there's one thing I ask you to do. Let Lazarus go to my father's house, where I have 5 brothers. Let him tell them, warn them, so that they too do not come to this place of torment.
They have Moses. They have the prophets. Let your brothers hear them.
No. No. But if someone from the dead comes to them,
They will repent. No, if they will not listen to Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded no one rises from the dead.
now. Please.
Lazarus, come to the place your father has prepared for you.
What you just saw in that video, what we just read from Luke 16, Enoch 22, is all broken down and compared on this little slide right here. You got multiple compartments, light and water, bright spring of water. The righteous are in one area, the unrighteous are in another area. The unrighteous are in emotional pain, and the unrighteous will not be resurrected with the saints who get their glorified resurrection. They will be the unrighteous will be resurrected at the end of the millennial reign, at the great white throne judgment, back into their regular mortal bodies to stand judgment before Yeshua. You don't float in front of Yeshua for judgment as a soul. You stand before him in your actual mortal bodies, and this is the promise of Deuteronomy 7:11, where Yahweh will repay those who hate him to his face. To that face. So it's going to be a rough day because they will get resurrected, but it's not for a joyous reason, right? It's to stand judgment for Yeshua, and then they'll be sentenced to the lake of fire at that point. Right now, they're just in county, right? They're just in a holding cell. So they haven't really gone before the judge yet.
That's right.
Yeah, it's just a long county.
It is. But I look forward to the transfer.
Father, save us.
Redeem our souls. Absolutely. Excellent breakdown. Well said, brother. Recapped it well. And so this is evidence to me. Now, I know some people. I've heard some people. I learned very early from the beginning, before I even read Enoch, that this understanding is why some people reject Enoch, because of what Enoch 22 says. Right. However, I point out that Luke 16 is saying the same exact thing. And they'll say that was a parable and not intended to be understood as anything based on reality. And I'm like, why would our Messiah, the teacher of truth, the greatest teacher of all time, use something that wasn't based on reality to teach something about the afterlife? What say you, brother?
It makes no sense whatsoever. And people try to say, well, Paul quoted from Greek poets. And I'm like, he wasn't teaching philosophy or theology. He was quoting as something that they understood and then explaining proper theology in contrast to what they were taught by their Greek philosophy. So there's a big difference. Whereas Yeshua, never once does he say, well, you've been told this and it's wrong, and let me explain it to you. You know, that's not the setup for the parable in Luke 16. So the setup is he's teaching proper afterlife theology. For me, it hurts my heart and it blows my mind, because it really just comes from the dogma of modern Christian teaching that you just go immediately to heaven when you die. This is why people have to suddenly say Yeshua taught wrong afterlife theology. And to me, it just blows my mind, because you're like, wait a minute, you're telling me the greatest teacher ever, who had the perfect words of God entrusted to him, the words of his Father, gave you a false understanding of what happens after you die? And then they'll try to say, oh, well, that was just for them Jews. And then once he resurrected and he finished his work on the cross, now it's all different. Now you just go. And I'm like, that doesn't say that either.
It's the same dogma that teaches that we shouldn't consider things that are written in other books that claim to be prophets of the Most High God. Whereas I'm here to tell you we absolutely should. Nor was that the first and definitely far from the only time that our Messiah Yeshua, as well as the apostles, the prophets before them, referenced, alluded to, and directly quoted things that were introduced in the book of Enoch as well. So highly recommend it.